Men actually find it offensive when a woman throws this question at them. And the question is, what are we now? And welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Relationship with Emerald. When do you go exclusive? That is basically what we're talking about today. That is basically what we're going to be learning about today. When do you go exclusive? Why should you go exclusive? Who should you go exclusive with? What is going exclusive? What is it? And also, how do you go exclusive? Like, so many men do not know how to go exclusive with the woman they actually feel like going exclusive with. Women don't even know exactly when they should go exclusive with this guy. They don't know who they should go exclusive with because it's just a lot about this particular topic. I'm not doing it alone. I'm doing it with Mac. He just joined. I remember talking to some guys, and they're like, waiting me that one, you know? They're like, what is that? I mean, why do I have to, you know? They even started saying to me that you said you too, they like English things. I mean, that's what they said to me. And it's just crazy.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm very good. It's nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, no problem. Our subject is when to be exclusive.
Exactly.
That's right.
So that's what we're talking about, yeah. And I have a lot of questions to ask you because I know people on here, they also want to learn a lot from this topic today because I'm very sure that a lot of people don't know what it means to go exclusive, you know, why they should go exclusive, who they should go exclusive with. Like, there's just so much to learn about this particular topic. And I'm so glad to have you, you know, be the one to dish out all this important, you know, information about this topic today. I love the fact that you're married, you know. I mean, that really it gives me this relief of, you know, whatever we're going to be hearing from you is going to be authentic. My very first question for you, and I know a lot of us on here want to know, is to you, what exactly does it mean going exclusive? I mean, the word exclusive, you get to hear the word. What does it mean to you?
Well, I mean, I think in the 21st century, I think, you know, everybody starts dating differently. Some people jump straight into a relationship where they're kind of almost exclusive straight away. Other people have more of an open relationship. Eventually, I think the statistics are somewhere around 70 to 80% of people actually have that conversation where they sit down with their partner and they turn around and say, right, where is this relationship going? How do we take the next step forward? And I think in all honesty, it makes sense to have that conversation because the last thing you want to do is get 2 months down the road and think that you're in an exclusive relationship and you talk to your partner and you find out that actually they're sleeping with somebody else or they're dating somebody else because you chose not to have that conversation. And some people do choose not to have it because they think it, you know, they don't want to push the relationship forward. They don't want to scare somebody away. So it's definitely a good conversation to have. I think between us and, you know, in every sort of couple, people need to turn around and say, look, how do we take that next step? When you first start dating somebody, I don't think you should ever kind of assume that the other person isn't seeing anybody else until you've had that conversation. Yeah. And when I give people dating advice, men and women, I do suggest to them that they do continue to see other people. You know, in early days of a relationship, they should be kind of talking to more than one person at a time. And the reason for that is because it's not easy finding that kind of ideal person, that ideal partner. And there is a little bit of trial and error in it. There is a kind of, you have to talk to people. You have to have them conversations. You've got to get to know people. And if you did that one person at a time and assume that took, say, 2 months at a time, and then you had to go and find somebody else, you know, it could take you a long period of time before you actually find anybody worth having a decent conversation with. So, I mean, I would always suggest that you talk to more than one person at a time. But of course, you know, you can't do that behind each other's backs. That has to be a kind of an open dynamic, something that both of you accept. And then eventually this conversation has to happen. This exclusive conversation has to happen.
Interesting. Like, I mean, the part where you said you would advise people to talk to more than one person. And this part of the word, that is, I don't know how it works around this place that I'm in Africa, Nigeria precisely. You know that, right? So kind of not our thing, you know, talking to more than one person. And anyways, we'll come back to that. So that takes me to the next question, which is when should you when should you go exclusive? Say you're talking to someone and I mean, you guys have been in the talking terms for maybe 2 months, 3 months. When exactly do you think it's okay for you to start asking the question? I mean, what are we doing? Where are we going with this? Where is it leading and stuff?
I think we get tied up with dates. I think that's always a bit of a struggle by turning around and saying, it's going to be 2 months, 3 months. On average, most people probably do turn a relationship into something more exclusive after about 3 months. But I think there's more to it than that. I think a big part of it, in actual fact, is gut instinct. A big part of it is the relationship you're in, and the kind of dynamic that you've got going with that person. And you can kind of grasp whether there's going to be a situation where you're going to scare that person away, or whether they're going to reciprocate the way that you feel. I think what's more important than actual period from the date that you started to the date you want to go exclusive is the time that you actually spend together. Because there's plenty of people that are in kind of long distance relationships, and obviously that's going to take a much longer period of time to want that exclusivity than if you see each other, for instance, daily because you happen to work with each other, or if you're always in the same facility as somebody else. Things are going to go a lot quicker.
Oh, okay. You mentioned that you should know the kind of person you're involved with. If it's someone that, when you mention going exclusive with them, if it's going to scare them away. So when you mention going exclusive with your partner or whoever it is you're going on a date with, and they kind of like feel they don't accept it, or I mean, it scares them away, is that a good sign?
If you scare them away?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it is. Now, if you turn around and say to somebody you want to be exclusive, and the conversation's never going to go like that. You're never going to turn around and say, I want to be exclusive, but we can cover that in a minute if you want. If you suggest to somebody that you want to be exclusive and they turn around and say, no, absolutely not, then you simply have two choices. You can either turn around and think to yourself, right, in that case, that's fair enough. I'm not going to push him. I'm going to wait. Or you can decide to walk out of that relationship and think, you know what, this guy's not going to commit to me, and it's not a relationship for me. Now, that really depends on how much of an investment you've put into that relationship. If you find that you've held off asking that exclusive question because you've always felt that he's going to bail or he's going to leave, and we're now 6 months, 8 months down the road, and you finally think, you know what, I'm going to push the question, and he just turns around and blatantly says no, then that might be a huge red flag for you.
Oh, okay. The next question I have for you is why should one go exclusive? I was gonna there's this saying that they say let them do whatever they want to do, so you see what they rather do, right? Okay, a lot of people bank on that, and they're like, there's actually no need for me to talk about going exclusive with this person. I just want to let them be themselves, and just see what they rather do if I don't tell them what I want. So that brings me to this question of why should you go exclusive? Because I mean, if we have to accept that saying, that means there's no need for one to go exclusive. I'm not accepting to that though. I'm asking you, why should we go exclusive?
I think maybe it's not a case of so much of should we go exclusive. It's more a case of should we have that conversation.
Oh, the conversation.
Because there's obviously 101 different types of relationships. There's open relationships, there's shared relationships, there's all sorts of relationships out there. But until you have that conversation, until you sit down, your partner, the person that you want to be with, and you turn around and say, look, where are we now and where do we want to go? How are you going to know? Because like I said at the beginning, you don't want to find yourself getting kind of bit in the butt because, this person's seeing other people and that's just not the sort of relationship that you want.
Yeah.
So at some point you do need to have that conversation, I believe.
Okay. So when deciding whether or not you should why you should go exclusive, it's not just about why you should go exclusive. It should be about the conversation. Why should you have the conversation, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so the next question is how can one go exclusive? Because obviously if I have been seeing this person for a long time and I have decided to go exclusive with them, I mean, how do I do it?
I think sitting somebody down and turning around and saying, let's get exclusive is always going to be a little bit scary,
Okay.
especially if you've misjudged it a little bit. And
Mm.
especially if you're talking to a guy who is perhaps a little bit insecure. Just sitting down and turning around and saying, let's be exclusive or let's go exclusive, maybe a bit too forward. But you can turn around and hint at things like, are you talking to other people, or, are you sleeping with other people, or what's happening in our relationship, or how do we take this to the next step? Them sort of questions. And
Oh.
I'm hoping that if you're asking these questions to a person, that you know them well enough that they're going to react reasonably well to that. Now, some guys, and girls, in fact, will perhaps panic a little bit and will be a little bit surprised and will be kind of, oh, I wasn't expecting that question. And you know what? That's absolutely fine, because you are asking them something that's quite a big deal. You're asking them, about a longer term relationship, which is perhaps not something they were considering.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
don't be upset if they get surprised, but just have that conversation. I think it's definitely worth having.
Hmm. Okay. One more question before the last one. Um, so when a woman or a man have decided to, have this conversation about going exclusive, one of the things I know very well that scares us is, who should we go exclusive with? So if I'm putting the question right, I'd say, what are the things to look out for in someone you want to go exclusive with? I think you mentioned a few of them, but I'd really like you to focus more on it. What are the things to look out for if you want to go exclusive with someone?
I mean, the massive thing that you have to pay attention to is red flags. If you've made a conscious effort to sit down and think to yourself, like tonight, for instance, I am going to talk to my partner
Mm-hmm.
about, how our relationship's going and how we're going to move it forward and whether we're going to be exclusive or not, then that is a time to also sit down and think to yourself, right, what flags are out there and what am I missing?
Mm.
Now, if you turn around and say to yourself, there's no red flags whatsoever, then you're lying to yourself, because there's always going to be a few. There's always going to be a few things where you think, oh, I didn't like that, or, I didn't like the way he behaved there. But if these are big things that you're ignoring, then these are things that you need to do something about. And people do it all the time. They just choose to ignore, those red flags, and the little red flags add up. So you want to be looking at people's, like, whether they're trustworthy,
Mm.
whether they're honest. Is this somebody that likes to embellish all their stories every time they tell one, or is this somebody that's very frank and forward? All these kind of quirks and um, little characteristics. If you don't like them, they're the things that are eventually going to destroy your relationship. They're the things that will come around in a big circle, and eventually they'll shoot you in the foot.
Mm. Okay, you mentioned the first thing you mentioned to look out for are the red flags, yeah? So, I mean, it just takes me back to what some people or what we're being told most of the time. I mean, they tell us that when you meet someone, you don't just start judging them by the things, or let's say the red flags, you see them, display, because obviously people change. Maybe they're just doing it for the time being, and maybe that's not them. And maybe if you communicate with them about these things, they might just change. So, I mean, is it okay to just, I'm trying to go exclusive with this person, and I just start judging you, considering the things that I've seen. I just judge you, like, I meet you today, we're talking, we're trying to go exclusive, and I'm like, okay, he does this and this and that and that. I'm sorry, I can't do this. Is it okay? Or give them the time, you know to see if they're gonna
I,
change or get off that bad behavior or something?
I think there's two things in that. I think the first one is that if there are red flags and there are things that you do not feel comfortable with, or if there are things that you cannot see staying in that relationship, um, then I think that you need to seriously wonder whether you're with the right person, because red flags are never worth ignoring. And one thing you can't do is change somebody.
Hmm.
People show you their true colors. If you're seeing highlights of something that you don't like, I would strongly suggest that you step out of that relationship and go somewhere else. There is a lot of people out there, an awful lot of people out there. You do not need to be getting into relationships that are kind of setting off red flags already. The other thing, of course, is that you most certainly do not want to be asking somebody with red flags if they want to get an exclusive relationship. You're absolutely right in what you said, that some people do show some perhaps unfavorable characteristics at the start of a relationship, and perhaps they do change a little bit, or they kind of slide into the relationship. Perhaps they're a little bit of a player, or perhaps they like going out and having a drink or doing whatever it is that they do, while they're single. And them characteristics you might not like, but as they come into a relationship, they make change. But you wait for them characteristics to change before you ask them to go into, an exclusive relationship. And you're also right in thinking that it's okay to have that conversation. It's okay to turn around and say to somebody, I don't like these things about us. I don't like the fact that we do this. And it's all right to bring up them red flags and see if it is something that that person knows about and whether they're willing to change. A relationship is a constant conversation. From the day one to the day that you die, it's a constant kind of growth and constantly building with each other and discussing how you feel and where you're going. And you've got to keep having them conversations. You've got to identify them red flags. You've got to highlight them. You've got to see if they change. You've got to turn around and say, look, I'm going exclusive now. Do you want to go exclusive? You can talk about things like, obviously not in the first 3 months, but you can talk about things like, eventually I want to have children, or I want to get married, or, I want to live here, or I want to do this for my career. A relationship is your life. You need to talk about it. You need to have them conversations.
Okay, nice. Let me take you back to what you said when we started off. You made mention of talking to other people when you are trying to go exclusive or so, right? You made mention of that.
Yeah.
And I was saying something about how people down here, how we see it, I don't know, over there. But then how does it make you a serious person? I mean, you want to get serious with life and get serious with oppressing, talking to other people. Does it include, going intimate with them? Does it include that as well? Because, and while you do that, how do you know that, how are you possible to get serious with your life and be able to pick that one person that you want to go exclusive with?
Like I said, I think the problem here is that we have got. It's going to sound a little bit mean, but I think we're probably looking at maybe a very small proportion of the population are possibly going to be your ideal candidate, your ideal partner, the person that you're going to really match with. And it's not as easy as it seems to sometimes find that person. You're looking for, one fish in amongst many. So the reason we suggest that it's okay to talk to more than one person is because there's so many people out there. When you go online dating, for instance, which is massive, I'm in Europe, so it's massive in Europe. You can't have one conversation with one person. You do end up having conversations with many people.
Yeah. Whether
you go intimate with more than one person or not is entirely up to you. I would strongly suggest that people don't do that. I think once you started dating somebody and you started you've gone past that having a first or second date, and you're now in a situation where you're speaking to somebody regularly, or you're meeting up with that person regularly, and that relationship has turned into something intimate. I think maybe there you should be looking at, having this conversation, or at least suggesting at it.
Oh, okay.
Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's definitely a case of that people do that. People do kind of get into intimate relationships with more than one person, and it is a very common, common thing to happen.
I totally understand. I do understand. So my last question is, I don't know if you're aware of this, men actually they find it offensive, or should I say they don't like it when a woman throws this question at them. And the question is, what are we now? Have you ever heard that before? Like, women, we normally ask this question. Take, for example, I'm talking to a guy, and then, I really want us to get to the next place, and I'm asking, what are we now? Most especially, we ask this question after we have gone intimate, maybe first or second time, and then we're asking, what are we now? So in this side of the word, men don't like it at all. I cannot tell from your end, but then I know that men do not like this question coming from a woman. The question I want to know is, should we stop asking this question as a woman?
No, I think you need to have them conversations. I think over here, and it must be the same over there, whether they like to hear that question is very dependent on how attracted to you they are at the time and how ready they are to get into a more in-depth relationship. And them two have to balance each other out. They need to think that you're the right person for them, and they need to be in a position in their life where they want to take that step. Now, most boys cross men, so younger men, will always have that kind of fear in the back of their mind that they're going to be losing out on something if they take that committed relationship.
Okay.
They're always going to have that kind of mentality of perhaps there's somebody better out there for them. So it's almost like ingrained in us that we're always going to panic a little bit. There's always going to be a little bit of nervousness. When it comes to dating, when it comes to relationships, when I coach men, I actively encourage men to pursue a woman to start with, to kind of get her on a date and make her feel feminine and beautiful, and kind of encourage her to be in that relationship and start that dating phase. Okay. But I also actively encourage men to not push that relationship forward past a certain point. And the reason is because more often than not, men can come across as very kind of needy, like they almost want to kind of put a mark on somebody and turn around and say, you're mine. And that can be really unattractive. I know a lot of guys struggle with relationships because they come on too fast and too strong. They kind of, freak people out. Now, that might not be an issue around your area, but it certainly is up here. Women want a guy that's kind of confident and happy and kind of knows what he wants and just goes about his life. A guy's position in a relationship should be to make his partner feel loved and adored and kind of, have fun and enjoy that relationship. It's not so much his job to try and push that relationship forward. He should follow her lead on that.
Okay. That is awesome. I mean, like, all the answers to all the questions are really awesome. Now, I'm going to have you just give us, in a nutshell, just give us a few words about going exclusive before we wrap up.
I think we covered quite a lot there. I did write a few things down. I think there's two main things that you need to concern yourself with. I think the first one is, are they the right person for you? Okay. I think we've covered that quite well. Are they the right person for you? What I think people forget a lot is, are you the right person for them? Before you go exclusive, make sure that they are actually in a situation where they really want you, where that kind of relationship is real kind of, they're pursuing you, they're chasing you, they're trying to get your time, they're trying to get your attention. Make sure that you have that kind of connection when it comes to intimacy, and make sure that you're having that time together more so than just the occasional dates, but actual kind of, good conversations and romance, and you kind of really feel that vibe of this is somebody that I want to spend time with. And don't be scared to have the conversation. Don't be scared to turn around and say, look, where are we? Where do we stand? And if they say something that you don't like, and you don't think that relationship's headed in the right direction, don't be scared to walk away. There's a lot of people out there.
Nice. I was going to ask you that when you have, come to an understanding whether or not this person is right for you, right? And considering the things that you've mentioned, intimacy, great, they are showing interest in you like so much, and then you decide to go exclusive with them. Along the line, and they start misbehaving, like changing and, being what they were not when they were coming after you before you guys went exclusive. What is that? So
it happens a lot, and it all comes down to attraction. The way that somebody treats you, the way that somebody pursues you, the way that somebody dates you, all comes down to attraction. And what often happens, unfortunately, is that we get bored of each other. We don't get bored of each other, but we get complacent with each other. We stop dating each other. We stop trying to make people pursue us. We kind of almost become a couple, an ingrained kind of entity. And you can't do that. You need to be individual people living an individual life, and you need that person to keep pursuing you. Because as long as they're chasing you, they're not leaving you, they're not getting bored of you.
So it's not all about going exclusive, right? you have to still continue chasing this person, if I understand what you're saying. Right?
Absolutely, yeah, and that goes on forever. That's never a case of, you ever get into a situation where you become this amalgamated couple that just don't kind of do anything, and you just kind of float along with your mundane lives, and you're kind of, heaven forbid, in marriage, and you have children and all that sort of stuff, and you're not trying to attract each other, you're not trying to, kind of interest each other, then your relationship is going to fizzle out. It's going to fall flat. And if your relationship falls flat, one of two things are going to happen. Either you're going to settle and you're going to stay in that situation for a long period of time. And some people do for 10, 15 years before they turn around and say, enough's enough. Or your relationship's going to break up. But you need to be keeping that person attracted to you all the time. And the way that you do that is by having your own life, your own things going on, your own interests, your own hobbies, all that sort of stuff. You need to be kind of not giving that person 100% of your attention all the time. You need that person to be investing in you.
Mm. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much for all the
Well,
tips.
it's lovely to talk to you.
I appreciate it.
It was lovely to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to let you go now. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, you guys, so that was Mark, and I'm sure all of you on here, you heard everything he said, and I'm sure you understand everything he said. Ladies, guys, another thing we need to learn how to do is learning how to walk away when it doesn't suit you. Don't sit in there acting like you can change somebody's mind, acting like you're Hulk Hogan, or what's Hulk Hogan that takes in every kind of blow, every kind of heat, you can take it because you feel you love this person. No. If it's not working for you, learn to walk away. And some people are like, oh, it's so easy to say, so easy to say. If you understand yourself, then you would know. It's just so easy. It's that easy. Understand yourself. A lot of us don't even know ourselves. We don't know what we can take. Yeah. I see ladies like experience things sometimes. I myself, yeah, I've experienced things as well. But like, it gets to a point I'm like, hey, I can't go past this. Okay, this is like too much for me. I can't go past this. This is a limit I can take. Okay, so I'm shutting the door right here. I'm quitting right here. I'm walking away right here. So you have to work on yourself first. I always say this all the time. Having said all of these things, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next week Friday with another great topic and of course another awesome guest. I had so much fun today having this conversation with Mark today. I'll see you guys on Friday. Bye guys.